What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so um, obviously I'm responding to a clip that I saw on Player's Choice today. All right, and they were talking about Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game, and I don't know whether it was sarcasm, parody. They could just be like making fun of people who just don't agree with things that they don't like. Anti-science, anti-stats people. Okay, it was registered, but who do we know what really happened? That those type of people, you know. And at the end of the day, I'm just gonna say this: it did happen. Like the 100-point game happened, and it's something that people have to accept. I know some people want other scoring games to appear to be better or whatever some of these players today are putting up some incredible numbers, but let's not forget that it is indeed much easier to score today than it was in the past. Okay? And before I go further, let's clear up some of these myths. Some people say, oh man, well, it was easy for Wilt to score. All you had to do was just dump it to Wilt. He would just go up for a dunk and all that. Well, first of all, let me say this first off. Dunking for the majority of Wilt Chamberlain's career was very taboo. It was very taboo. Remember, during the 1960s, when Kareem was playing in UCLA, they outlawed the dunk. So to me, back then, not just to me, excuse me, back then, dunking was seen as showing up the opposition. Did players dunk? Yeah, they dunked. But excessively dunking the basketball could get you elbowed in the fucking throat. It could get you knocked in the mouth, which is something that actually happened to Wilt Chamberlain. And at the end of the day, it wasn't as easy to score as people think it is. Back then, for much of the 60s, players could double hand check. Not just hand check, but double hand check, using both of their hands, which made it much harder for the opposition to get into position to score. Matter of fact, you didn't see that many dunks. Most of Wilt Chamberlain's dunks come later. When we look at highlights of Wilt, more of Wilt's dunks came later when they got rid of double hand checking and they instituted certain rules which made it a little bit easier for post players to score. Which is why if you look at shooting percentages for big men, they started gradually going up for the most part after 1965 when rule changes and defensive rule changes were implemented to make it easier for make it easier for players to score the basketball. That's when it was easier for Wilt to get freed up for a dunk by the time he was with the Lakers. And also, the stigma on dunking was starting to change by then anyway. But yeah, Wilt was, when he played against the Knicks that night, especially in the second half, he was constantly swarmed defensively. He was double teamed, at times triple teamed, which is why he wound up taking 63 shots. Remember, at one point during the game, Wilt was like 24 of 36 from the floor. I think he was 24 of 36 from the floor with 69 points. But he had to take an incredible 27 more shots to get those 31 extra points, because the Knicks really began to do their best to stop him from getting 100 points because they saw him as showing up the team. As a matter of fact, when Wilt finished scoring 100 points, he was profusely apologizing to the Knicks team because it was a different time period. Like that was seen as just showing up opposition, and it was also not Wilt's idea to get 100 points that night, despite the fact people look at Wilt as this stat, this guy that's obsessed with stats. It was actually the idea of the head coach at the time, and it was the idea of the head coach, and it was the idea of the point guard being Guy Rogers. They're the ones that said, you know what, look, Wilt has 41 points at halftime. Maybe we should just force feed him and see if we can get 100 out of this guy. And then Wilt went along with it. But when the Knicks kind of figured out what the fuck was going on, because they kept exclusively giving the ball to Chamberlain, they did everything they could to try to stop it. And they got Wilt out of his rhythm a little bit. That's why he forced a lot of shots at the end, because, he was the goal was to get 100 points then, but it was, things weren't going as smoothly. Now, as far as the night, him shooting 28 of 32, look, that was, I think, the one year that he shot over 60% from the free throw line. I think he shot 61%. But to do a brief comparison, in 2002, 2003, Shaq shot 62% from the foul line. It's the only year he shot anywhere near that. And while he never had a game that could quite compare to that, he did have a game where he shot 12 or 13 from the foul line against, I think, the Sacramento Kings. And he had another game where he shot 10 of 12 from the foul line. And he had another game where he shot 7 of 8 from the foul line. Mixed in with some other games where he shot 80% or better from the foul line. So what I'm saying is that it's not that much of an aberration. Hell, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who this year is shooting a little bit above 60% from the foul line, during the NBA Finals, had a closeout game where he connected on 17 of 19 from the foul line. So there are indeed nights, there are indeed some games where players shoot exceptionally well from the foul line, despite the fact that they may not be great free throw shooters. Wilt never had a night like that before or since, but then again, has anybody ever had a night like Wilt when he dropped 100 points? Hell, I remember looking at a game, parts of a game, during the '67 finals, when Rick Barry, who was one of the great free throw shooters in the history of the game, went 11 of 19 from the foul line. That's unheard of. So we have these types of performances, these aberrations, where a great player, a shooter, may have a bad night shooting from the foul line. Tim Hardaway, who was not a shabby shooter, has the NBA record for most shot attempts missed in a game consecutively without a make, going 0 for 17. Right? Tim Hardaway. Last year, Kevin Durant had a series where he where he had what? What did he average? 5+ turnovers a game? Have we ever seen it before with Kevin Durant? So these types of things happen, But anyway, that's all I got to say about it, man. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game did happen. It was not as easy as people make it out to be, especially in the second half. And he was not going up against a bum. Daryl Imhoff was not a bum. The Knicks were not a great team. But look, then again, I got to put this out there, and I'm not trying to disparage Kobe, but let's not forget that when he had his 81-point game against the Raptors, they were the second worst defensive team in the NBA, and at the time when he did it, they were the worst defensive team in the NBA. Now, I'm only bringing that up because we can't pick and choose when we want to denigrate someone's performance and then exalt others. most guys who have these big scoring nights, they come against teams that that just aren't designed to stop great players. You know, it just happens. You know, how many big games have we seen James Harden have against the worst defenses in the NBA? James Harden has destroyed the Pelicans in his career because they were one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA from the perimeter. Uh, that they've had. That's one of the reasons why they wound up getting recently in recent years. Their perimeter defense was so bad. That's why they wound up in recent years getting guys like Lonzo Ball and Rajon Rondo because their perimeter defense was so horrible. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Tell me what you guys think.